This podcast is a production of the Brickyard Network. To find out more about our lineup of ceramic podcasts, visit brickyardnetwork.org.
This episode is brought to you by Cornell Studio Supply, located in the gem city of Dayton, Ohio. Find all your pottery and ceramic sculpture equipment and supplies with the best customer service and world-class workshops. Join us for our upcoming Rocket Kiln workshop with Lisa Orr, July 18th through the 20th, 2025. Visit CornellStudioSupply.com to sign up. Cornell Studio Supply, owned and operated for potters by potters.
Hi, I'm Rose, and I'm from the Emergency Glaze System. And we've got your back with our brand new ceramic materials workshop consulting. For just $100, you can get 30 minutes with our team of ceramic superheroes, and we'll help you with fixing your glaze and clay disasters, finding material substitutes, decoding ceramic weirdness, you name it. Snag your session over at ceramicmaterialsworkshop.com.
Hello, my name is Kathy King, and welcome to the For Flux Sake podcast. I'm coming to you from the Harvard Ceramics program in our fair city, Allston, Massachusetts. I'm here with Rose and Matt Katz of the world-famous Ceramic Materials Workshop, and they are ready to answer your burning questions about clay and glaze. Hello, Matt and Rose.
Hey, Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
Hi. Unfortunately, I think we have to start this episode with an acknowledgement of having lost someone very dear to both the Ceramic Materials Workshop and the For Flux Sake family.
Yeah.
And Matt, I know it's tough.
I'm going to try to keep it together. Rose is having a hard time. So many of you may not know, but we had a team member, Megan Whetstine, who passed away not too long ago.
She'd kill you. It's Wetstein.
We're off to a great start. Okay.
Yeah, that was Megan. That she would have. Megan unfortunately passed away at the age of 29. And Megan was an important person to all of us. She worked for us here at CMW. She was just an absolute hero to us, and even to For Flux Sake. Many of you may not know, but when you submit questions, they go to our mailbox, and Megan was the person who read all the questions and sorted them. And she helped to structure the show.
She helped do all the artwork for the show.
She did all the artwork, all the marketing, all the social media posts. She, for us, she ran our YouTube channel and did all of our video production. Megan, her passing was unexpected but not unforeseen. She had a long-term medical condition that we won't get into. And it was always something that loomed over her, and it hit us really hard. Megan, we always said, was sort of our eldest daughter, and we love her dearly. But we really want to acknowledge her because she was part of this show, and she was part of our family, and a lot of the silliness and the attitude that we have was reflected in Megan, and she was our spirit animal.
How'd you feel about that, Rose?
She said she would definitely be a hairless cat.
And we can't do it on our own around here. And Megan had been with us for a really long time. Megan started as my student at Alfred University, and she had expressed interest in what I was teaching, and she made a terrible mistake and took my class a second time because she said she wanted to learn more.
Wow.
And then, I always say, people always say to do do students have favorites? And my answer is always yes. It's the people that bother to care. And Megan cared. Although that would be the last thing she would want you to believe, that she cared. She played apathy like the coolest cucumber. And
She was the cool kid.
she was the cool kid. She was the young person that we all thought we were and wanted to be. Megan was that person. But it's really hard losing her. And but one thing I wanted to talk about, the positive side, I really wanted to put out there, and I wanted to have a conversation about, which is mentorship. Megan came to us through a series of mentors. She started specifically out in Western New York with Brian Hopkins. And some of you know Brian. He's a great artist, and Brian was a huge foundation for Megan. And he had sort of pushed her and helped her grow. And she had worked closely with Brian. A couple of years ago, she had one of the Studio Potter fellowships that she did with Brian. And she was an up-and-comer, and she was doing everything that you needed to do to try to make a life in ceramics as a professional, which is really, really hard to do. And I think I can fairly say that none of us would be here if it wasn't for our mentors. And I want to touch base on giving credit to all of our mentors. But I really want to encourage all of you out there who are established. And you might not be making a killing. Making ceramics is a hard life every day. But man, if you have got an opportunity, bring a young person into your studio. Give them a chance to grow and to learn, and it'll pay you back. And I think that's what we'll always feel for Megan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's amazing sometimes when, I can think back to being younger and not realizing I was being mentored at a time, and then looking back on it, it's, I can probably make a map at this point of all the people who touched me along the way. And it doesn't have to be this huge, like years long relationship, so just treating everybody with as if they have the potential to keep going, which is the case here. So,
yep. And, we've had a lot of conversations with Megan's family. And the one thing we said to her is like, we really believed in her. Like that was so important. And, we encourage all of you to find a young person and believe in them.
Well, I think just taking a breath, and we're going to start out with a question for today's episode. And I think this is a tribute to Megan's ability to go through all the questions that we get and to put the quality questions, it's subject matter wise, right up to the top. So our first question today comes from Melissa, who wants to know if it's safe to fire a balloon.
Hi, Kathy, Matt, and Rose. Thanks so much for taking my question. I really love your podcast. My name is Melissa Wong-Yajima from MWY Pottery, and I have a question about mylar balloons in a bisque kiln. Every year for my son's birthday, I make him a ceramic balloon for the age he's turning. So last year for his 4, I shaped the form using some toilet paper rolls, some paper, and tape, and I didn't need to leave any of the material inside because the slab was pretty firm and could hold its shape. This year for the 5, the slab was a little bit wetter, so it was harder to shape, so I ended up leaving in the paper and the toilet paper rolls and some tape, and the bisque went fine. But every time I share this on Instagram, a lot of people tell me to use a mylar balloon as the form and to leave the mylar balloon in for the bisque. It's very tempting because it would make it a lot easier, but how bad is it to fire a mylar balloon in a bisque kiln? Is it bad for your kiln and your elements? Is it bad for the environment to be burning mylar? Thanks so much. Would love your input.
Well, I know, as a community center director, I know what my answer is, but I'll leave it to
I don't even know what mylar is made out of. What kind of plastic is it?
It's PET, polyethylene terephthalate. And it's a pretty common plastic, but it's definitely a plastic. And they call it metallized. I think there's probably, a thin, it's probably what we'd call a sputter coating, a VPD coating or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's what makes it shiny, right?
Right. But it is still just a plastic balloon. And yeah, should you be firing plastic?
No.
I would agree with Kathy. It's probably
Listen, I mean, this, to bring it to a broader term, it's like even newspaper in our studio is no bueno. And we have great vents, but still, even with our great vents, if like people are, I didn't catch the fact that this workshop had happened on the Harvard campus, and they were making these Jabina pots, which is like a coffee pot. And I did not know that every single one was filled with newspaper. So when I put it into our kiln, it was just coming out of every crevice and, just discolored the inside of the kiln. I'm sure it wasn't good for the elements. And I guess the instructor wanted to do that because they were working so fast. And nothing to me says, the reality of clay is that if you can't wait a while to actually sculpt the thing, then don't sculpt the thing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could use the Mylar balloon, but then pop it and pull it out.
I've definitely seen people, cast Mylar balloons because they're pretty resistant to pressure. Especially those little tiny ones that you often find on a stick that aren't helium filled. Those will cast okay with plaster, and then you can make press mold clay out of it. The burnout thing, it's a weird conversation because plastic, I mean, this is oversimplified and the organic chemists will start screaming at me, but like it is just carbon chains and weird carbon chains, and like paper is a carbon chain, like it's not all
Kathy,
that.
when you fired those pots with the newspaper in them, did you fire that kiln again, and did the discoloration go away?
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah, we did a 6 afterwards, and it seems fine.
It burned down. Yeah.
Yeah. And we had done a thing, Rose, if you remember years ago, we'd done a consulting job
Oh
where
my God. Yeah, we had to move the kiln outside.
we were working with somebody had hired us to do work on a paper clay. But it was like not like a normal paper clay, like it was more paper than clay. And so we already knew that it was not going to go well. Yeah. And so we at this time we had a very small kiln that we knew we could pick up and move. So we actually planned for a sunny day, and we got an extension cord for our kiln, and we literally put the kiln outside the door.
Yeah. We built a little platform where we could pick it up and move it outside.
And after we fired it, the inside of the kiln was completely black.
Yeah. If only what our neighbors would think of us.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But we did the same thing of refiring it, and it all burns out because the black is carbon, right? It's just carbon deposits. And if you fire carbon, unfortunately for the atmosphere, it will turn into carbon dioxide. And so when you just reheat it, it'll just push that chemical reaction through. So like the long-term implications of burning carbon are not like the worst thing in the world from a technical standpoint. But that said, I don't know what the PET will break down into in their intermediate steps. Like, paper will just go basically straight to carbon, and that's not that bad. But the PET, there may be intermediate steps. And there's definitely
then the if it's metallicized, then that's going to leave the film too.
And just Googling here real quick, I can't find what it's being metallicized with. So that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. Yeah, because it has to be flexible too, because it's unblown up form. That's technical term, by the way. I'm going to patent that one. Like it's flexible. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm. With most things, if you do it once a year, you're probably not going to die. But I like Rose's suggestion about, popping it and somehow getting it out. Because if the Egyptians could do it with brains and put them in canopic jars, You can get a
Put
Mylar
a
balloon.
hook up there, wiggle it around a little bit.
Exactly. Exactly. What's the problem?
I will say, in solidarity for Kathy, I do have to recount the story of when I was a student. It was the 90s, and everybody was going through the finding out that you can soak stuffed animals in slip and then fire them.
Oh, yeah.
I think every college class goes through this, but this was
Everyone.
really big.
Mm-hmm.
And so, everybody, it was sad. The local Salvation would be raided of all of its stuffed toys and all that. But my friend Rob, and I'll call him out, he can take it. He did not really pay attention that he should only be using natural fibers. And he bought a whole bunch of like synthetic filled like Care Bears or whatever. And this was back in Alfred, and he fired them, and the ventilation system couldn't handle it. And it set off the entire building's emergency system. It shut all the fire doors automatically. Like, it was so bad.
Don't we have we still have a little elephant somewhere?
We do. I think it's on it's right. That's right there.
It's right.
You guys can't see it on the podcast, but that's one of Rob's elephants right there. But yeah, that it definitely is bad. And that's why policies and rules get started, everybody. Because I don't think you've been allowed to do that inside at Alfred for 25 years. Because you can all thank Rob for that.
Yeah. In Harvard, when we first moved in the building, I'm like, oh, well, a graduate school of design student was trying to come up with a ceramic acoustic tile. And so they took an upholstery foam, soaked it in slip, and then fired it. And I was like, oh, well, I'll just do a small part and see if it even works. And it worked. It was great. But I almost killed everybody in the building. so learning the hard way, please, out there. And this child, if the child gets a ceramic balloon every single birthday, what is happening when she packs this kid off to college? They've got 20 ceramic balloons to bring.
No, the worst one I've learned as an object person is it's not when the child goes to college at 18. It's when the child buys their first home, and then all of a sudden the parents like, these are all your balloons.
Oh, right.
Take them. Yep. You made them, Mom. I don't care. They're yours, and I want them out of my house.
Well said. Well said. All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for that question. That really helped us out immensely. So our next question is coming from Kelsey, and Kelsey is calling in from South Dakota and wants to know about firing versus how we pack a kiln.
Hey, Kathy, Matt, and Rose. My name is Kelsey, and I'm out here in South Dakota. I have a question about adjusting my firing schedule to accommodate for fuller or less full loads. So, for example, my peak segment on my kiln is to fire to 2200 degrees Fahrenheit with a 10-minute hold. And for a reasonably full kiln, that gives me a perfect cone 6 bend. If I have a fuller load, do I need to add more time to my final hold to ensure that the kiln is evenly heated throughout? Or do I potentially need a shorter hold because the kiln is so full it will theoretically cool slower and therefore still reach peak temperature? Any advice and explanation on how the packing of a kiln and the space around pieces can potentially affect the final firing's result would be great. I know that when I have a pack load, it cools more slowly, which sometimes gives me more running off of pots for my running glazes. It affects the crystal development, but I'm not sure how it affects the actual peak temperature reached. Thanks so much for all your scientific explanations.
This is a good one because we're going back and forth about this at the studio about whether the fact our amazing teaching assistants pack our kilns to the hilt. But it's been brought up. Are some of the problems due to that? Go ahead.
So, I mean, we don't pack our kilns very well.
People would be angry at us for environmental reasons if they knew the status of our kiln firings.
Don't tell anyone. Okay.
I guess if you're a really full packed kiln, it's just going to take longer to get to peak.
In theory,
mm-hmm.
If it's computer controlled, the computer should be compensating for that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Because again, really have to emphasize the fact that kilns are really dumb. And all they're doing is turn on the elements for a certain period of time, read how hot the kiln got, and then do the calculation. You need to be at this temperature by this time. And then adjust how much it turns it on and off until it gets to that time. So like if it's packed, it'd just be turning on the elements for longer periods of time, but it should still do it in that same set period of time. That's what the computer is there for. But I'd go back and say, Kathy, I mean, what you guys don't adjust right now, or you're thinking about adjusting?
No, well, you know our tech, Casey. So he wants to calibrate the kilns to kind of anticipate this type of loading. And I don't want, when the teaching assistants overpack the kilns, it often means that they're trying to be really efficient and they're taking work off the shelves that is not completely dry. And then that leads to longer preheats. And I really go with a no longer than 2-hour preheat for any reason, because it throws our whole schedule off. And we've got kilns going back to back to back. So yeah, he wanted to calibrate them. And I don't know enough about that to even give him an answer. So that's why I come here and do the podcast.
Well, your position is actually really good for a number of reasons about the preheat and the cycling, because I was just talking with some students about this recently, of like when we're doing glaze firings, I use our custom glaze program, which is the sort of fast program we talked about before. When I'm doing bisque firings, I actually still use the bisque button on my computer. And the only reason why I do it is because it allows you to easily put in a preheat time. So I don't have to go back and change the program for this minute. So I could just like literally plus 2 hours. And 2 hours is about all that I would give as sort of acceptable levels of preheat. If the work is not going to be dry in 2 hours of preheat, that work shouldn't be in the kiln. Because when we're talking about evenness and stress and all that, whether or not the kiln is packed tight. So and much less the practicality of like having to get the firing cycles out. And like that we definitely do. Like we unload every morning when, we walk the dogs and I go back and unload kilns. And so that part is absolutely true. The temperature, I don't think it makes much of a difference on the way up, because the computer should be compensating for it. The way down, as Kelsey mentioned, yes, that's going to cool more slowly, and the density of the stack. The major thing that I would say, though, is on the opposite end. And we talk about this in the Freddie episode, so you can go back and listen to that one for the more complete conversation. But the thing I really want to emphasize is on the opposite end, which is firing empty, which I have no experience doing.
No,
Here we go.
At all.
Mm-hmm, sure.
I never fire an entire kiln for one test tile. It is never.
Or a little puck, or a small puck.
Or a little puck. That may have happened. But, the thing that really brings to light is you definitely want to have a full stack of shells. That the full stack of shells will help to regulate the heat throughout the kiln. And that's the more important thing with the sort of overall structure of the managing the heat.
Yeah, that's what we do. We keep our stack in all the time. We just put test tiles in where we want them.
Yeah. Never comes out. Unless we have to do something weird. But when we first got our latest kiln, I was really sort of stressing out about like, do we really need kiln shelf storage? We got to like have a place to store all these kiln shells. And then we realized, no, they just stay stacked all the time.
There's our kiln shelf storage.
Well, that must be nice. That must be nice for both of you. Okay.
Kathy leads a hard life, y'all.
I know. It is hard. Oh my goodness. And it is also hard to say goodbye, because that is all the time we have, Matt and Rose. So until I see you again, adieu.
Bye, Kathy.
Later, Kathy.
Well, folks, that's it for this week's episode of For Flux Sake. I'd like to thank the listeners who submitted questions this week. And if you want your question answered on the show, shoot us an email at ForFluxSakePodcast@gmail.com. So join us next time. And when in your studio, remember what Rose always says.
Always remember to test. This is a test of the emergency glaze system. Beep.